Gina Very, the project manager at Spillman Farmer Architects. Jody King, first vice president at CBRE Inc. And finally, Kelly Burfield, the senior vice president at Colliers International. And Kelly is actually going to be our moderator for today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to her and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be the moderator for today. I'm Kelly Burfield. I'm a senior vice president at Colliers International. I'm a commercial real estate broker here in Lehigh Valley in Allentown. And my former life, I was a real estate attorney. And actually, this is my first year in 10 years of not teaching real estate courses at Lehigh University. So much like all of our panelists today, I too have a real estate background and I'm a member of UCREW. Quick housekeeping thing before we begin, and I just want to remind everyone that at the bottom of the screen, should be at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box that is accessible to everybody. You can put any questions in there that you have. We will do our best to answer those questions during the presentation or during the breakout rooms. Should we not be able to get to your question and either of those times, we will reach out to your college representative and get those answers back to you. So let's begin. We're going to start with our panelists, and one by one, I'm going to have each of you take a moment to introduce yourselves a little bit more in depth. Tell us what your profession is or your specific role in commercial real estate, what your educational background is, and at what point does your profession come into contact with clients during a real estate transaction. And actually, Jody, I'm going to start with you.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. I do have spotty Wi-Fi because I had to borrow a client's office space today, so hopefully you can hear me all right. I too have had two lives. My first life and professional career, I got a degree in international relations, and I worked for a international hotel company doing all of their food and beverage. About 15 years ago, I needed some more flexibility in my life because I have two children, and they didn't like that mom worked on Mother's Day and all holidays. So I went into commercial real estate and I got my license, and I also became a CCIM designee. So that's a significant amount of education and training that I went through to get this designation. It stands for Certified Commercial Investment Manager, and it's the single best thing that I have done for my second career in commercial real estate. I've been doing this for 15 years now. I work for CBRE, which is one of the largest real estate companies in the world. I am based out of the Lehigh Valley, but I do a little bit of travel for clients. And where do I come into play with real estate, with commercial real estate, is through sales and through leasing. I looked back and about 25% of my business is actually selling properties, commercial properties. I don't do residential. So I either have sold land, sold buildings, otherwise, 75% of my workday and commissions that I make is on leasing. And I focus on office, retail, medical, and then of course, land, because land is a hot commodity. I think I covered everything.
Thank you, Jody. We're gonna go to you next, Abby.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Abby Martin. I'm an attorney at Fitzpatrick, Lintz & Buba in Allentown, and we are a full service law firm. So we handle pretty much every aspect of legal transactions. And specifically, I'm primarily in the corporate business and banking group. And my primary practice area is commercial real estate financing transactions. So basically, whenever someone needs money to buy, renovate, or refinance a commercial property, I'm brought in to represent either the lender or the borrower. By way of background, I am a graduate of West Virginia University. I went there for undergrad and law school. I have an accounting degree as well as my law degree. And straight out of college, I started working for a commercial mortgage broker in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's sort of how I broke into real estate. And I worked there for about 7 years before relocating here to the Lehigh Valley. And I had an interim job between my current job and working in Charlotte, where I worked for a commercial mortgage lender in Philadelphia, and it was a startup company, and that was a little bit scary for me. So I wasn't there. I was only there for about 1.5 years, and decided that I wanted to work here in the Lehigh Valley, which is where I was living. And so I started looking for legal jobs here and found my current job at Fitzpatrick, Lentz & Buba. As far as the timing of when a client comes to me in a real estate transaction, it is all over the board. We have a wide range of clients, from, you know, people who are really savvy real estate developers or investors. And then we have people who are just, you know, buying like one apartment building with just a few units in it to, you know, basically supplement their income. So depending on their level of sophistication, we could come in at the very beginning and assist them through every step of the process. Or like I said earlier, sometimes I just come in to assist with the financing.
Thank you. Mary, if you could answer the same questions, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mary Bristol. I am with Univest Bank and Trust as a business development officer, specializing in commercial real estate financing, which could be owner-occupied commercial real estate, which means that is a business owner that is going to operate their business out of the real estate they're financing. Or it could be investment real estate, where someone owns the real estate as an income producing property and another business would operate their business out of it. Or in some cases, it could be tenants living in it as on the consumer side, such as a residential project. My educational background, I attended Strayer College, Strayer University. Back when I attended, it was actually Strayer College, and majoring in accounting. My story is somewhat similar to what Jody discussed. I kind of have a two-career pathway as well. I originally started my career in business management with a very large retailer, working my way up into senior management. Similar story as Jody. I also had a family and was looking for a different type of working hours to spend more time with my family. So I transitioned into banking and commercial real estate financing. As far as when someone actually approaches me or I approach them to initiate a financing transaction for commercial real estate, that varies. It's kind of like Abby. I do want to mention too, I have a lot of synergies with people like Abby and people like Jody. We work together. There are opportunities, you know, where sometimes Abby may represent a bank such as mine. So we do in the industry end up working together quite a bit. So it's good to make these contacts through organizations like UCREW, et cetera. But yeah, so it really varies. I'll give you an example. One of my clients I've been working with actually for a couple of years. They've already outgrown their commercial facility. They're leasing space. It's kind of fragmented all over you know, the geographic area. So it's becoming cumbersome for them to operate their business, but they're growing very quickly. I've been working with them for about 2 years on projections and just trying to help them get their arms around the total cost of what the financing is going to be for them. And some people come to me, or I end up getting introduced to them through one of my colleagues or one of my fellow crew members, you know, already ready to make the purchase. They have an agreement of sale or something like that. It could be a transaction such as an expansion. There's an opportunity for financing there. So as my colleagues mentioned, it can vary very much as to when I become involved in the transaction. I will say the sooner the better. So, you know, just kind of leave it at that.
Thank you, Mary. Gina, if we could hear from you next.
Hi. Hold on. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulty. So I represent the architectural aspect of real estate. Sometimes we work directly with building owners for their land development, lease spaces, etc. But mostly our clients have already chosen their space, and we work in conjunction with owners and developers to design the building that goes on their property or do a fit out that goes within a room or an office space or medical suite. And that includes everything from your your finishes to equipment to walls and dividing offices. We pretty much do about everything. So we're in the middle between the real estate, the financing, the insurance. We all work together to help the owner develop their project to fruition. In terms of education, I went to University of Pittsburgh for my undergraduate. I am from Pennsylvania, so that made sense for my parents. And then I springboarded to University of Houston to acquire my master's in architecture degree. I found that I really liked Lehigh Valley, so I'm back here pursuing my career, work with all these fantastic people, and work in or keep one foot in the door in the industry with UCREW and American Institute for Architects and CSI programs. But that's pretty much runs it out for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Joni.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joni Elikis. I am a director of property management for J.G. Petrucci, which is located in Asbury, New Jersey. The company is owner and development of commercial real estate as well as retail and residential space. I started off my career in accounting as well as human resources, office management. Nobody really says, hey, I want to be a property manager, but it just happened through networking. And with a great friend, I came into the position at J.G. Petrucci, which is, you know, an absolutely fantastic company. I got my bachelor's degree from Muhlenberg College in Business and a business degree, my master's degree in business from DeSales University. And I manage over 5 million square feet of space. And like I said, we build and sell as well as, you know, commercial space, but we have residential as well as retail space. That's it.
Thank you. Jody, at this time, I'm going to circle back around to you. Can you speak to what has been a most challenging project and what has your takeaway been from that experience? Is Jody still on here? Or did we lose Jody by chance? She mentioned spotty. So actually, Gina, would you mind taking that question about your most challenging project and your takeaway until she comes back? Is she there?
Hi, I guess you're talking to me again.
Yeah, Gina, sorry.
I can't hear
Yeah.
you.
Your participant ID.
I can't hear you right now because
Otherwise,
again, technical
press pound to
difficulty. Are
continue.
we talking about number 4 on your list?
Yeah, so yeah, if you can talk about
Yes.
your most challenging project.
You
and
are in the
sorry.
meeting now. There are more than 20 participants in the meeting. This meeting is recorded. You are muted.
You want me to come back? Here, why don't we'll go on to the next question and then we'll come
Okay,
back.
no, I got it. I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Okay. So we're on number 4?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so my most challenging project. Well, all projects are pretty challenging as they range from the client to the actual building type itself, the actual building project. There are many projects. I've never really done a cookie cutter project, so each one of them is always new for me, which is a whole challenging project in itself. But there are some clients that need some extra constant information. Others have more experience in architecture, more that are doing commercial, heavy commercial development, so to speak. And they're a little bit easier to follow. But my most challenging project was there was a client where they were working on this project for 5 years and nothing was moving forward with it. And the client was getting frustrated. And so they had called and really wanted somebody to help them through the process. And that became a really delicate balance working between the contractor and the owner to, because it has to do with money and holding people's hands to force them to do a project while making sure the client is happy. And that truly was the most difficult project. So it took me another year to wrap up the project, and but 5 years for a project that should have taken 9 months was definitely a long time. So that was a delicate balance for me. Thanks.
Hey, Jody, are you back?
Yes, I'm sorry. I switched to my phone because the computer is just not working.
It's
I
all
apologize.
good.
So I'm glad I got to go after Gina because the project that I'm going to talk about took 10 years. So I guess long and short of it is projects can take a long time. Luckily, there's some quick and easy ones too. But the project I want to talk about, I think everybody's familiar with the restaurant Zest in South Bethlehem. So they are our tenant on the 6th floor. We built a 6-story building, Class A office building. And the dream started 12 years ago now, where we were sitting down. I worked with the owners on a lot of projects, and we were talking about how can we bring the area around Lehigh University to be a college town and really integrate into which should be more of a college town instead of all these little separate buildings. So we acquired all of the properties. I then decided that we should set up a meeting with who we thought should be the anchor tenants. And again, this was 12 years ago now. We had the Sands hosted us, and we had the mayor present. We had NCC, St. Luke's, and Lehigh University all at the meeting. Of course, our architect was there, and we made a presentation. And the only group that stood up and said, yeah, we're kind of interested was NCC, but they needed warehouse space. And we couldn't accommodate warehouse space because we had plans for a Class A office building. So a few changes in terms of people in high places came about. We had a new mayor. We had a new chancellor at Lehigh University, and some key people at St. Luke's stepped into place. And I set up another meeting. And this was about 5 years later, and it was all women at the meeting, except for the mayor. And I have to tell you that it was a great meeting. Sorry, men, but we decided this is something that we want to happen. And we went through the planning. And of course, we had to get 6 stories approved in South Bethlehem, which was a small act of God, and got it done. So today the reason I say it was 10 years is because we had the ribbon cutting exactly within 2 days of the initial meeting, 10 years later. So that was pretty exciting. So I didn't tell too many people that story, but I was happy to talk about it today. The couple of takeaways for me on this project and a couple of highlights. One is after 10 years of working on this project, the owners of the building let me name the building. So the name of the building is Gateway at Greenway Park. Another thing that I haven't told too many people. So that still is a very proud moment for me. And it shows that perseverance and networking and working with women can really take you far to get projects completed. And it just takes a little bit of creativity and a lot of hard work and determination. And so that would be my 10-year project that I love to talk about. And if you haven't seen the building, go to the building because it's phenomenal.
Oh, I love that story. I didn't know the back detail to that. That's awesome. Okay, so our next question is, in our professions, there are many moments that are very memorable and rewarding. Abby, as an attorney, can you tell us some of yours?
Never going to get used to that, but primarily my most memorable and rewarding experiences in this line of work are usually the ones that where we're brought in on the ground floor of a big development. So one project that comes to mind is we have a real estate developer client who wanted to build a luxury multifamily project outside of Philadelphia. And I think it has close to 300 apartment units in it. So it was going to be a really big project. So in order to get started, they needed to buy, I think it was 5 or 6 different parcels of land. So we're dealing with 5 or 6 different sellers in 5 or 6 different acquisition transactions. And, essentially they needed this whole big property in order to develop it the way that they wanted to. So, if one thing went wrong with any of the sellers, it would be a big problem. So we worked through all of the acquisition process and purchased all the parcels. And then we needed to consolidate the parcels, which is a huge project in and of itself. Once the consolidation was completed, then they moved to the construction phase. So essentially my role in this was from the beginning. So they needed financing to purchase the property. Then they needed more financing to construct the development. And then once the construction was completed, they needed what we refer to as permanent financing. So essentially the construction financing is pretty short term. And, you know, it's only, for this project, it was less than 2 years. And then when the 2 years is up and the building is completed and everything is good to go, then they seek permanent financing, which you know, will be a pretty long-term loan on the project. So that's kind of the things that I like to see the most, and that are the most rewarding, where you sometimes start with, you know, property that no one has any idea what its potential is, and someone with a vision comes in and turns it into, you know, a beautiful luxury apartment complex.
Nice. Mary, I'm going to ask you the same question about memorable and rewarding.
Yes, in some parts, this can also be construed as a challenging project, but it was very memorable and very rewarding for a couple of reasons. I had a client who had actually purchased an old industrial manufacturing building, you know, and he had probably owned it for, I'm thinking about 2 years before I even became involved, and had done some initial cleanup and groundwork. And it became kind of a than he anticipated than I anticipated, you know, for a number of reasons. As I mentioned, he did do some cleanup on his own. So he came to me to seek, we initially did construction finance for him. And of course, you know, once the construction piece is complete, that will, you know, turn into permanent financing, as Abby mentioned. But there were a number of hurdles along the way for him. One of which he did a very good job about getting approvals. You know, the budgets came in right where we needed them to. Very experienced builder, architect. He has, you know, a lot of a year's experience in there, but he ran into some hurdles with some approvals, codes. We actually had a situation where he had some approvals, and then by the time we got to the point where it was actually ready to get the shovel in the ground, if you will, some codes had changed, so he had to go back and get some things reapproved. And then from the financing perspective, this was a deal I actually had to take to our executive loan committee 2 times for a couple of different reasons. There was some negotiating back and forth between the board of directors and myself, and it had to go to the board of directors because it was a larger scale project. So all in all, probably about 2 years after he purchased the property, then we were actually able to secure the financing for him probably about a year later. The most rewarding part of this project is, though, even though it's number one, it's an adaptive reuse of a building, which I always love that type of project. But this has a low to moderate income veterans housing component to it. So what that means is basically there is going to be some very affordable housing in place for some, you know, individuals that served our country in the military service, which is meaningful to me and a lot of other people out there. And there's actually, I learned through this project, there's actually a pretty serious backlog for veterans housing, and particularly this community. So that was a rewarding project, helping him to shepherd him through that process, getting involved when I needed to, you know, with the townships, et cetera, to help him through that piece, as well as the financing. So he's broken ground, had a grand opening. The township's officials are very happy with the project. So again, helping him get the money he needed to do that project. I mean, that's when it really becomes rewarding for me, is to see those type of projects come to fruition, especially when it's going to have a positive impact on the community.
That's great. Thank you. Joni, same question for you.
So my most memorable yet challenging project was when I first started at JG Petrucci. The property manager that I had replaced was doing a fit out for 80,000 square feet of space, which was a call center. So with dealing with 700, 800 people in a space, it was extremely challenging. the scope of work, the tenant just seemed to want to change it and thought that we could easily accommodate after having all the plans set up, dealing with all the subcontractors. We had to stick to a budget, and the tenant just kept wanting to change it. We had meetings at the location. The biggest challenge with that was dealing with moving of cubicles. You're dealing with electrical, you're dealing with the company's personal desks and just moving all that. So that was really challenging, and just kind of going back and forth with the tenant. And like I said, they wanted to make changes to the scope of work, which when you're kind of 95% into it and getting all things settled out, that was really a challenge. But when all was said and done, the building looked absolutely phenomenal. The employees were just elated with how it looked. Everybody was pleased. And I really learned a lot from that job. JG Petrucci also owns Iron Hill Construction in Bethlehem. So I have the ability to work with really intelligent project managers and contractors, subcontractors to get any kind of information for any kind of construction or whatnot. So that was very helpful. So it was just really memorable being able to pull this all together, get so much information from this job, from a construction standpoint, and just really pull it together, and then have a really serious connection then with this tenant, since it was a year-long project and it shouldn't even have taken that long. But in the end, it worked out really well and everything looked fantastic.
Thank you. So I know we have some professors on here, and so I'm going to ask them to cover their ears on this question. I hesitantly ask. Jody, I'm going to pose this to you. We often hear it said that sometimes it's more important who you know rather than what you know. What are your thoughts on this phrase, and how important is networking at the end of the day?
All right, well, let me try to explain that without getting anybody in trouble. It definitely is all about networking. However, you can't network, in my opinion, with the right people unless you know what to say and what to ask. So in my opinion, education is so important. How did I spend my time during COVID? Was education. If I had a free hour, I was taking a webinar. I still do it, listening to podcasts, so that when I am in a situation where I'm networking, which I'll be honest, I wouldn't be where I am in my career today without a lot of the people that are on the phone today. CREW has helped me open doors. Warm calls are so much better than a cold call. And it absolutely is the difference between a successful business and a super successful business, in my opinion. However, like I said, you need the education. You absolutely need to be able to ask the right questions, and that only happens through learning. And in terms of asking the right questions and expanding that knowledge base, you also have to be able to listen. And to me, that puts you in the right circles. So I think both are important. I hope I didn't get anybody in trouble.
Thank you. Mary, I know you touched a little bit already on networking, but can you expand a little bit about how networking works for you?
Absolutely. I definitely can concur with everything that Jody said. Networking is very important. Organizations like CREW have definitely helped to open doors. But just to dovetail what she said about the educational component, it is definitely very important to have the educational background and to continue your education throughout your career. That's how you build trust. You can network 7 days a week and make contacts. But if you don't build the trust, if the contacts that you make don't fully understand and appreciate that when they come to you, you're going to come to the table and deliver because you have that knowledge and education and that experience, then at the end of the day, you're probably making a lot of contacts that aren't mutually beneficial, if you will. So it's definitely important to continue the education, to get your education now, and to continue it throughout your career. I, like Jody, have spent a fair amount of time on continuing education. After my college days, we use an organization called Risk Management Associates, specifically focuses on the risk management aspects of lending. Certainly through CREW, there are a lot of opportunities for learning and developing as well, in addition to networking. But definitely, I would concur with what Jody said. Networking is crucial in our business, and organizations like CREW can help open doors, and they can also help, lead us to some educational opportunities down the road once you've completed your college career.
Can I add one more thing, Kelly?
Absolutely.
So thanks, Mary. I agree with you. And I think the other thing that the education piece does is it helps you with expand that knowledge base, and that leads to credibility, to build that trust, like Mary said, and it also leads to confidence. So it's much easier to ask the right questions, feeling confident, and the confidence comes from education. So I think it all goes hand in hand, like Mary said as well.
Yeah, both of you bring up great points. And actually, Mary, you touched on continuing ed. And Gina, I'm going to pose this to you for continuing education. A lot of our professions require us to do continuing education. Can you talk a little bit about what goes on in your profession for continuing education?
Sure. So continuing education for us is pretty strict. We have to keep up with codes and different aspects of construction and design all the time. And we're required to get so many credits a year, continuing education credits. But outside of that, most of us are pretty, we're go-getter kind of people. We want to learn more. Each of our projects, as I mentioned earlier, we don't do a lot of cookie cutter construction. So each of our projects are really different. So sometimes we also need to educate ourselves outside those continuing education credits that we receive, and do things to help educate ourselves so that when we go to a meeting, meet with a client, we understand things more specifically. So for me, sometimes I need to understand things about acoustics that I have never done before, or maybe there's a new finish out there, or there's waterproofing that is, new materials come out all the time, new products come out all the time, and we have to be on the cutting edge of all of that. There are organizations out there and conversations with people from CREW and Construction Specifications Institute, the CSI, and the American Institute of Architects. Between all their publications and meetings and seminars, you can pretty much keep up on that. So again, networking and working as a group and knowing where to turn for everything and the information that you need is really helpful. And as Jody and Mary said, is to be present in your conversation. It gives you the confidence. It helps you in your job. Thank you.
Thanks. The next question that I have, Joni, I'm actually going to pose this one to you. As we're all aware, COVID has been really rough on a lot of people and many professions. And I believe all of us on the call today have also been through the last recession. So whether COVID specific or not, how do you adapt or recreate yourself during difficult times?
So during COVID, this was such a tricky time. When you think that everybody's going to completely shut down, it's more of a restructuring. I know with JG Petrucci, we had to give concessions to some of our tenants. There was a lot of people in the very beginning that panicked, due to the whole COVID thing, not knowing how long things were going to be closed down. Our retail spaces were hit the worst. I mean, they had to shut down, particularly nail salons. They got hit so hard, but we worked with all of our tenants because we didn't want to see anyone fail. So we made sure that, anybody that contacted us, we followed up with them, gave them any kind of concessions. One thing, a lot of inspections got pushed back. So when you thought that you were going to have a break, because there weren't going to be inspections or that many things happening, you just kind of got slammed with a lot of Zoom meetings and talking to other people and amending leases and doing things such as that. And then when things started to open up, that's when it really got crazy because more construction started, more leases came about, the inspections that you missed when things were closed, they all came about. So it actually really got crazy and still kind of is. I mean, we're kind of going on to the tail end. It seems like things are leveling off right now. But I mean, the owner of our company was absolutely amazing handling the whole COVID situation and working with our tenants, and everybody was very appreciative because, again, like I said, our retail space was really hit, and they appreciated how we worked for them, but we want people to see it succeed. We don't want them to fail. So we just worked with everybody, and we made it through, but it was definitely a challenging time. We had our construction sites that were shut down for a while, but you know what, we made it through it, and we are doing really, really well. And our tenants are absolutely thrilled with how we worked with them. And I feel as though we have more of a better bond with our tenants now due to the whole COVID thing, because they know what kind of company we are and how we want to work with them, for them, and that we want them to succeed. So it was really a trying time, but we really made it through it well.
That is great information. Thank you so much. I want to be mindful of our time. In 6 minutes, we're going to go into breakout sessions. So I really want to get to my last question, which is my favorite question of all questions. And I'm going to ask all of the panelists this question. And the question is, if you could go back in time, what would you tell college you in either preparing for the future or just in general? And so Abby, we're going to start with you.
Sure. So I think that the biggest piece of advice that I would give myself is that, you know, when you get that diploma and you step off that stage, what you decide to do next isn't going to define you for the rest of your life. You can, as you've seen, heard all of our panelists say today, almost, they have had career changes, have had life changes, have had, you know, so many different things that have happened in their lives that have sent them down multiple different paths. So, you know, if you have your heart set on career A on the day that you graduate and it doesn't work out that way, find what you love and find a way that you can do it and get paid for it.
Thank you. Gina, same question?
Okay, yes, I agree with Abby there on everything she said. I also like to add that for my particular profession, we did not learn too much about business. We really focused on design in our careers, and I would go back and get more information on business, because that's the major language of conversation with all of us. And I think that can be really helpful. Also, keeping up with technology, which is one thing we've all learned during COVID. So I'm older, I know you can't tell, but technology is a huge thing that some of us need to keep up with a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody?
Gosh, those were great answers, ladies. I guess the other thing I would say is, and I have to say this, study hard. Make sure you practice your networking and be a good listener. It's not an easy attribute to have, but if you're a good listener and you pay attention, you'll get a lot further in life. So coming from a mother and a businesswoman, how's that?
That is great. Joni?
I would have to say, go for whatever job that you want, even though you may not have the confidence in knowing 100% what you're going to be doing. Go for it, because you're not going to learn about a particular job in a classroom situation. You're going to learn it on the job. But when you are in your position, don't just sit around and wait to be trained, because that may or may not be may or may not happen. Make sure you go for information, ask questions. Just don't sit there and spin around in your chair. Just make sure that you talk to people that are in your company, and just network, get to know people, be friendly, and learn. Learn as much as you can, be a sponge, and get as much information as you can about that job, because it will be recognized.
I love that. That is great. And Mary, same question.
I would say that learn to embrace change. Change is everywhere in the commercial real estate industry and in the world. And if you can learn to embrace change and to educate yourself to be prepared for change, that will help ease your transition when things are changing for you, whether it be your career, whether it be the world in general, whatever is going on out there. But learn to embrace change, learn that you can learn what you need to learn to fully be engaged with change. And what is also most important, learn to enjoy the ride. Just because things are changing doesn't mean that things are not still going to be good for you. But if you can learn to embrace change and enjoy the ride, I think it will make your careers, a lot easier for you down the road.
That is great. Thank you. I want to take a moment to thank all of our panelists today and all of you at Northampton Community College for allowing us to speak with you. If we didn't get to one of your questions during the meeting, we will get an answer for you, but I also wanted to let you know that there's plenty of time to ask questions in the breakout rooms that we're going to go into in just a moment. Should you come up with additional questions after our meeting, we are just an email or a phone call away, so feel free to reach out to us. Network with us. We are here for you. We'd like to form relationships with you. And at this time, I'm going to hand the presentation back over to Allison, who's going to put us in the breakout room. So thank you again.
All right, so I've practiced this, but hopefully it works. So I have everyone assigned, and hopefully you're with people who are in your similar major and profession. So I'm going to click on it now. And make sure it'll ask you if you want to join the breakout room, please join it.
Hey, are you the only other person in here?
Yeah, my breakout room was just me, so I came back to the meeting.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I do not know what's going on with the breakout rooms. I have it on here. Here, I'm actually going to share screen because maybe you guys can help me.
Okay.
Hi,
Hey,
we came back because somehow I got in a room with.
this is happening to everybody. So do you see how I did the breakout rooms? So there should be
Like a few people.
in every breakout room, and I am not seeing any. everybody's just getting one person per breakout room. So I don't know.
Let me look quick. Hold on, I'm on Zoom.
I'm gonna close all rooms real quick. Yeah, but I am so sorry. I do not know, because this was like the main thing I thought would be helpful for you guys.
Let's
Okay.
see.
Everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
So you can
Yes.
see. I promise I did it.
Allison,
Well-
I ended up coming out of the breakout room somehow. I'm not sure, but I
Oh,
did
I
get to
ended
speak
it
with
for
Karen.
everybody.
Okay,
also
I did get
ended
to
it.
speak with Karen for a few minutes. I'm going to connect with her on a couple of things. So, yeah, I might be able to lend some support, you know, to the
It happened to
internship.
everybody. Do you know how to fix it? She said like automatically leave it.
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
Okay. You can hear me. Oops, sorry.
So I have the breakout rooms. I have people picked for this. I mean, I can just assign it randomly.
I jumped out of my room. I was in a room for like 2 minutes and then I got kicked out.
There's supposed to be a kid in this room, or a
Same
student
here.
in this room. But
I was in a room by myself.
everybody was in a room by themselves. But if you see my screen, here are my breakout rooms. Everybody has.
Why
I
don't we
had
just bring
I had a
everybody
student.
together and just do Q&A with the whole group?
Whole group.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good
That's
idea.
what I was going to
My
say.
Yeah,
person,
that's a
my
good
person
idea.
was muted.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
let's
type-
do. I'm gonna do
And
start
type in
sharing.
questions and we can respond as whoever can handle it.
Yeah, do you want to do the chat box?
And we can do
I'd say
both.
either do chat or if they can unmute themselves and go ahead and ask a question. I think
Yeah.
either way.
Yeah, whichever is easier for you. If you're shy, feel free to use the chat.
I have a
Hi.
question.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Desiree.
Hi, I'm Desiree Devilla. I'm currently a construction major in management at NAC. I don't think I'm very shy, but I always am awkward when it comes to networking. I just don't know. I never know what to say. I've been to a few AIA meetings with a lot of, people who are I'm not signed up with the AIA. And they were really great meetings. I never know like hey, what do you do? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I have a little person here waving. So yeah, I know I feel like I'm very well spoken. I just never know how to jump into networking or, the right way to go about it and what to say.
I think I'll answer. I think some good questions are, well, first of all, what do you want to know? Do you want to know how people got started in their profession? Do you want to know how long they've been in this profession? What kind of schooling took them there? Those are the types of things people love to talk about themselves.
Okay.
So ask questions that mean something to you, or, what advice would you give to me starting out? I think it's okay to be a personal question. And I think it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable when you're networking. And it's taking a leap. When somebody comes to a crew meeting, the first thing that the crew members do, if it's a guest, is we welcome them, we ask them questions. So going to a group like that is intended for networking is always a helpful thing. But then to have a couple questions in your back pocket that means something to you, again, I love to know how people got started in their career. So that's one I go to. Or, even just what brought you to this career? What do you love about it? What advice would you give me starting out? Things, just think of a couple questions and ask everybody the same questions.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'd also like to answer answer on that as well. Sorry. I said I wasn't technologically advanced. So I would like to answer that as well. And part of that is you're learning. You're in the mode where you're learning and you're absorbing and your mind is like a sponge. And when you go to the AIA and if you join crew and you go to these events, if you don't feel that you can be forward or ask the questions, sometimes it helps to observe and hear other people's conversations and see what you can take away from what they're asking, from what they're doing. And eventually, between educating and using some of the techniques that Jody mentioned, eventually it'll just settle right in with you and you'll take off. It'll be fine. Good luck.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was
Okay.
muted.
What books would you recommend in order to be a good negotiator? Since you guys have to deal with a lot of people every single day and negotiate contracts and do many of that stuff, what would you recommend for us, the students, to read in order to become better at negotiating?
Oh, and I just want to add, he is a business management major.
I can jump in here. I had a mentor once recommend the book Getting to Yes to me, and it's very short and is, I think, was very helpful. It just has really practical advice in it. Hopefully there's been an update since I read it, but I think that it was a good basis for negotiation.
If I can speak to negotiation, and not necessarily a book, but a common client that Jody and I both have, who used to be the head of St. Luke's, their real estate department. He's no longer there. He's retired. But I would go into meetings with him for negotiations, and he would be silent. And it was awkward. People don't like silence. And at the end of the negotiation, he would get so much out of these landlords because they just didn't like the awkwardness of silence. And so they would talk and fill the air, and the rate kept coming down and coming down. So observing other people and their negotiation style is really important, and taking a negotiation class. It was my favorite class in law school. I wish I would have taken one in college. It's so much fun to just sit there and negotiate terms with someone. So not book specific, but interesting to definitely take a class and watch other people negotiate.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. My name's Ariana. I'm doing business admin right now, and I'm finishing up my second year at NAC for that. So I did want to transfer for a pre-law major, and just listening to everybody's majors, I took note that almost everybody was financing, accounting, and then eventually switched over to a second part when you guys realized a second chapter of Career Rise. So I was thinking of doing psychology and just taking notes on what everyone was saying, basically negotiation and networking. Learning the study of people, would that be very helpful for all of you? Like, would you agree on that? Just learning how to talk to people and understand them, especially like within contracts differently, like everybody's a bit different personality wise.
Yeah, the good thing with the practice of law is basically you can go to law school with, any degree. There are some that are more helpful, probably that give you a little bit of a leg up. Some colleges have pre-law programs, and a lot of people do political science. My accounting background was helpful in some areas, but certainly nowhere near all of them. Some of my colleagues in law school who had taken psychology and philosophy courses had, I don't want to call it an advantage, but they had a unique perspective on, the practice of law that was different than, mine. So, and I always thought that they brought, a unique way of looking at the problems, the issues that were presented, in the cases that we were studying, those sorts of things based on that background. So I think that psychology would be a good choice. And then also, like I said, philosophy.
Allison, can I add on to that really quick?
Yeah, Go ahead.
So just to your point, I was a political science philosophy dual major in college, and I was going to go to law school. Did not end up pursuing that, but I have been in sales for 20 some years now. And that background absolutely was a huge advantage to me. And I would definitely agree. I think understanding psychology and people and all of that it's definitely an advantage and it's helpful. So I just kind of, when you mentioned that, I just wanted to add on that it has worked for me. And I didn't have a finance or business or accounting or anything major, but just having that political science philosophy has helped me a lot to be successful in sales and account management.
I'm also on the sales end, and I would say that yeah, that's helpful. And I think having in sales a general personality where you're a good listener, like Jody had said, and also that you have empathy, so you're able and you're intuitive, that you can kind of sense how people are feeling or what stresses them out or what they're worried about, which is very helpful with insurance because you're trying to calm people's fears. So yeah, and I was an economics major, so not in my field either.
That really helped. Thank you.
You're welcome. And any other questions? I mean, if you've already asked a question, you can ask a couple more if you need to. No? Are we good? All right, so I am going to be sending Katrina over the PowerPoint. And I will ask that the members of CREW, if you can share with me your contact information, that Katrina could pass it along to the students who attended today. So if they are interested in reaching out, as long as you're comfortable with that, just send me your information. And if you're not, that's okay as well. So that in case the students hear or think of anything else that they may want to ask you directly outside of this panel. Right, so I guess thank you everybody for joining us. And I guess
If I could just quickly thank you guys from the college. We really appreciate you guys doing this to help our students. Sorry, we're on campus today, not at home. But we will definitely share the contact with the students. So like all of you guys that came, if you could follow up and maybe connect with them on LinkedIn, but just definitely stay in touch with these wonderful individuals. We just really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to connect with our students.
Yes, thank you.
Of course, no, we are happy to do it. And I mean, talking about LinkedIn, Katrina, that for the students, that is an excellent thing. You should be on that. When you're talking about networking, I have made some of my best contacts through LinkedIn. Outside of CREW would be LinkedIn. All right. Abby, were you going to say something or?
Nope, I was just going to say thank you for the opportunity. It was great.
Yeah, I noticed you unmuted, so I was like. So, okay, well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting and hopefully, we'll see you guys again soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.